Taiwan Park rubbed his tired eyes as he entered his small apartment in eastern Seoul. Another 14-hour day at the aerospace research facility left him barely able to stand. He dropped his keys in the bowl by the door, slipped off his shoes, and shuffled toward the kitchen. Something felt off. Taiwan paused, frowning at his kitchen counter. The coffee mug he'd left beside the sink that morning now sat on the shelf above. He was certain he hadn't put it there. "I must be more tired than I thought," he muttered, shaking his head. He heated leftover rice and vegetables, ate quickly, and fell into bed without giving it another thought. The next morning, Taiwan noticed his physics books on the shelf were arranged differently. The one he'd left open on his desk was now closed and placed between two others he rarely touched. Strange, but not impossible to explain. Perhaps he'd moved them himself and forgotten. But when his toothbrush appeared on the opposite side of the sink 3 days in a row, Taiwan began to wonder. "Either I'm sleepwalking or going crazy," he said to himself. At work, Taiwan couldn't focus on the propulsion system designs his team was developing. His mind kept returning to the small mysteries in his apartment. During lunch, he mentioned the odd occurrences to his colleague, Jiho. "Maybe you have a ghost," Jiho laughed, picking up another piece of kimchi. "Or maybe you need more sleep." Taewon nodded, smiling weakly. "You're probably right about the sleep." That evening, Taewon made a list of every strange incident he could remember from the past month. Moved coffee mug, rearranged books, shifted furniture, computer turned on, window open when he closed it. The list grew longer than he expected. "This is ridiculous," he said, crumpling the paper, but he didn't throw it away. A week later, something happened that Taewon couldn't explain away. Standing in front of his bathroom mirror, toothbrush in hand, he noticed a shimmer in the corner of the mirror. Not a reflection, but something like heat rising from hot pavement, a distortion in the air itself. It lasted only seconds before vanishing. His heart raced. This wasn't exhaustion or forgetfulness. This was something else. That night, Taewon couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at his ceiling, listening for any unusual sounds. His mind, trained to solve complex engineering problems, worked overtime developing theories. Hallucinations from stress, some kind of gas leak causing him to see things, or maybe something not so easily explained. The next day, Taewon left work early and stopped at an electronics store. He purchased 4 small security cameras, spending nearly a week's salary. By evening, he had installed them strategically around his apartment, living room, kitchen, bedroom doorway, and bathroom. "Now we'll see what's really happening," he said, checking that each camera was recording properly. For 3 days, nothing unusual appeared on the footage. Objects still moved mysteriously, but the cameras never caught the moment of movement. Taewon began to doubt himself again. On the 4th night, while reviewing the day's recordings, Taewon found something. In the living room footage, at exactly 3:17 p.m. while he was at work, a brief visual distortion appeared near his bookshelf. The air seemed to bend, creating a ripple effect for about 4 seconds. When it disappeared, his physics textbook had moved from one shelf to another. Taewon replayed the footage 20 times, his hands shaking with excitement. This wasn't his imagination. Something was happening in his apartment, something he couldn't explain. The next morning, Taewon called in sick. He upgraded his setup, adding 2 more cameras and motion sensors. He wasn't afraid. He was fascinated. As an engineer, he approached the mystery methodically, gathering data before jumping to conclusions. He showed the footage to Jiho, who suggested it might be some kind of electromagnetic interference affecting both the cameras and somehow moving small objects. "Maybe there's unusual wiring in your building," Jiho suggested, "or equipment from a neighbor causing fields strong enough to move light objects." But when Taewon had the apartment checked by an electrician and tested with EMF meters, nothing unusual was found. Over the next 2 weeks, Taewon captured more visual distortions on camera. They always appeared when he wasn't home, always lasted just a few seconds, and always coincided with objects moving. He began marking the positions of everything in his apartment with small tape indicators, confirming that items were indeed shifting. He created a detailed log of every incident, noting patterns. The distortions appeared most frequently in the afternoon, often near his bookshelves or computer. They never happened when he sat perfectly still, pretending to be asleep. Whatever it is, he told himself, it's avoiding direct contact with me. One night, unable to sleep, Taiwan was struck by a new idea. He grabbed his notebook and began sketching a device that might help identify what was causing the distortions. Using his knowledge of electromagnetic fields and optical sensors, he designed a trap of sorts, not to catch anything physical, but to gather more data when the distortions appeared. It took him a week to build the device using parts borrowed from work and items ordered online. He connected it to his computer and calibrated it carefully. The sensors would trigger if anything disrupted the carefully arranged electromagnetic field he created in his living room. The morning after setting up his creation, Taiwan went to work as usual but kept checking his phone, which was connected to the system at home. At 2:43 p.m., he received an alert. The sensors had triggered. Taiwan made an excuse about a family emergency and left work immediately. His heart pounded as he drove home, wondering what his device had detected. When he entered his apartment, everything looked normal, but his computer screen showed a series of readings. The data indicated something had disrupted his sensor field for nearly 30 seconds, much longer than previous incidents. Whatever had been in his apartment was becoming more present, staying longer. That night, Taiwan added the final component to his system, a high-frequency emitter that would activate if the sensors were triggered, potentially making the distortion more visible or affecting whatever was causing it. "I'll find you," he whispered, setting everything up for the next day. "Whatever you are, I'll understand you." As he finally drifted off to sleep, Taiwan wasn't afraid of what might be sharing his space. He was excited. The engineer in him saw this as the ultimate puzzle to solve, and he was getting closer to the answer. Taiwan hunched over his workbench, carefully soldering the final connection on his newest creation. 3 months of evidence gathering had led to this moment. The small device resembled a metal box with several antennas and sensors protruding from its surface. He had designed it to detect and amplify the electromagnetic anomalies that always accompanied the strange visits to his apartment. "This time, I'll see you," he whispered, checking the connections one last time. He positioned the device on his bookshelf, angling it toward the center of his living room, where most of the distortions had appeared. A small display showed readings from the various sensors. Taiwan had programmed it to emit a soft chirping sound when it detected the specific pattern of energy he had documented during previous incidents. For 5 nights, nothing happened. Taiwan maintained his routine, going to work at the aerospace facility during the day and checking his equipment each evening. The constant vigilance left him exhausted, dark circles forming under his eyes. On the 6th night, he decided to try something different. Instead of sitting in his living room watching the sensors, he went to bed early but kept the device active. Perhaps whatever was visiting his apartment avoided him when he was obviously waiting. Taiwan lay in bed, eyes closed but mind alert. The digital clock on his nightstand showed 11:43 p.m. when he heard it, the soft chirping sound from his device in the living room. His heart leaped, but he forced himself to remain still, controlling his breathing to appear asleep. The chirping grew louder, indicating stronger readings. Something was definitely in his apartment. He counted to 30 in his head, then carefully opened one eye. Through the bedroom doorway, he could see a faint glow coming from the living room. A blue-violet light that pulsed gently. With practiced slowness, Taiwan reached under his pillow and pressed a button on a small remote. This triggered the second part of his trap, a series of small lights that would illuminate the living room from multiple angles, making it impossible for the visitor to remain hidden. The moment the lights activated, Taiwan leaped from his bed and rushed toward the doorway. The chirping from his device had become a continuous tone. What he saw made him freeze in place, hand gripping the doorframe for support. In the center of his living room stood a figure unlike anything he had ever seen or imagined. She was tall, at least 2 meters in height, with limbs that seemed too long and graceful for her frame. Her skin shimmered with an inner light that shifted between deep blue and violet, like the colors of a twilight sky. Most striking were her features. Not quite human, not quite bird. Large, reflective eyes dominated a face that was both alien and somehow familiar. Where a human might have hair, she had a slight crest that rose when she noticed him watching. The being moved back, clearly startled by his sudden appearance and the lights. She raised long, slender fingers in what might have been a gesture of peace. For several seconds, they simply stared at each other. Taiwan's scientific mind cataloged details, even as his emotions swung between fear and wonder. The visitor's chest moved in and out. She breathed air. Her posture suggested intelligence and caution rather than aggression. "You can see me now," she said suddenly in perfect Korean. Her voice had a musical quality, like notes played on crystal. Taewon's legs nearly gave out beneath him. He steadied himself against the wall. "Yes," he managed to reply. "I've been tracking you for months." The being tilted her head, the movement reminiscent of a curious bird. "Impressive. Most subjects never notice us at all." Subjects. Taiwan found his voice growing stronger as his scientific curiosity overcame his shock. "Who are you? What are you doing in my home?" The visitor seemed to consider her options, glancing at the device on his bookshelf that continued to emit its high-pitched tone. She moved toward it slowly, examining it without touching. "Your device," she said. "It creates a field that disrupts my cloaking technology. Quite ingenious for your level of development." She turned back to face him fully. "My name is Navi. I'm a xenoanthropologist from what you would call the SETI Alliance." Taiwan repeated the unfamiliar terms silently, committing them to memory. "A xenoanthropologist," he said. "You study foreign species. You've been studying me." Navi nodded, her crest rippling with the movement. "Yes. Your world is classified as closed in our protocols, a planet under observation, but not yet ready for official contact." Taiwan took a careful step forward. "Yet here you are, speaking to me." "Here I am," she agreed, something like amusement in her voice. "This was not planned. Your trap was unexpected." Taiwan moved to his couch and sat down slowly, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Would you like to sit, or can you sit with your physiology?" Navi seemed surprised by the invitation, but folded her long limbs into the chair with surprising grace. "Yes, though our skeletal structure differs from yours in several ways." "How long have you been watching me?" Taiwan asked, still trying to process that he was having a conversation with an alien being in his living room. "3 of your Earth years," Nady replied. "I was assigned to study technological problem solvers in various cultures. You were randomly selected from a pool of aerospace engineers." Taiwan ran a hand through his hair. "And all those things moving around my apartment." "Observational errors," Nady explained. "My cloaking technology sometimes creates small displacement fields. I didn't realize you were noticing the effects until you began marking positions and installing cameras." A thought occurred to Taiwan. "Are there others like you, watching other humans?" Navy's skin shimmered, colors shifting to deeper blues. "Yes, we have observers studying various aspects of human civilization. Arts, governance, social structures, technologies. And none of us are supposed to know about this." "Correct. First contact is regulated by strict protocols. Your world is not yet scheduled for official introduction to the Alliance." Taiwan leaned forward. "Then why are you still talking to me? Shouldn't you have?" "I don't know. Disappeared. Erased my memory." Navy's crest rose slightly. "That would be the standard procedure." She paused, studying him. "But your device presents an interesting situation. The fact that you built it indicates your species might be more ready than our models suggest. She stood suddenly, moving to examine the books on his shelf. Besides, she added, I've developed a certain scientific interest in your particular problem-solving approaches. Taiwan watched her move around his living room, noting how the light played across her iridescent skin. Despite his shock, he felt strangely calm. The methodical part of his brain was already thinking about what questions to ask, what he could learn from this unprecedented opportunity. So what happens now? He asked. Navi turned to face him, her large eyes reflecting the light of his lamp. That depends on you, Taiwan Park. Our conversation has already broken multiple regulations. If my superiors discover this breach, there would be consequences. For you or for me? For both of us, she said simply, but primarily for me. Taiwan considered this. Then why risk it? Navy's expression changed in a way he couldn't quite interpret, because in 3 years of observation, I've learned that sometimes the most valuable discoveries come from broken protocols. Taiwan barely slept after his encounter with Navi. He called in sick to work the next day, his mind racing with questions he wanted to ask the alien visitor. Would she return? Had he imagined the whole thing? The only proof he had was the readings from his device, which showed energy patterns unlike anything he'd ever seen. As evening approached, he paced his apartment, occasionally glancing at the device he'd built. He had modified it slightly, hoping to detect Navi's presence without the disruptive field that had affected her cloaking technology. At precisely 8:30 p.m., the sensors lit up. A soft shimmer appeared in the center of his living room, gradually taking shape until Navi stood before him, her blue-violet skin catching the light. You came back, Taiwan said, unable to hide his relief. Navi tilted her head. I had to make a decision. Either erase all evidence of our meeting and request reassignment, or, she gestured at herself, continue our conversation. Taiwan offered her a seat, which she took with that same strange grace he had noticed before. I have so many questions, he began. As do I, she replied. Though I've been watching you for years, direct interaction provides entirely new data. Taiwan brought them both tea, which Navi examined with interest before taking a careful sip. Pleasant, she commented. Similar to a beverage from the Proxima system, though less bitter. Why me? Taiwan asked suddenly. Out of billions of humans, why were you assigned to watch me? Navi set down her cup. Initially, it was random selection. The Alliance studies thousands of subjects across various professions and cultures. But over time, my focus on you became more specific. What do you mean? I've been studying you specifically, Navi explained, her large eyes fixed on him. Your problem-solving approaches are exceptional, even for humans. When faced with obstacles, you rarely follow expected patterns. Taiwan frowned. I'm just an ordinary engineer. No, Navi said firmly. The device you built to detect me proves otherwise. Most humans would have attributed the disturbances to forgetfulness or imagination. You approached it like a scientific problem and created a solution beyond your current technology level. She leaned forward slightly. Do you understand what that means? You independently developed a rudimentary field detector similar to technology that took my species centuries to perfect. Taiwan felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. So you stayed to watch me because I'm interesting. Navy's skin shifted to deeper blue tones. I stayed because what began as scientific observation evolved into something more personal. I found myself drawn to your persistence, your creativity, the way you see the world. There was something in her voice that made Taiwan look at her more closely. Was this alien being expressing something like admiration, affection? Before he could pursue that thought, Navi reached into a small pouch at her side and removed what appeared to be a thin, translucent tablet. I want to show you something, she said, touching its surface. The tablet illuminated with symbols and patterns Taiwan didn't recognize. This connects to what you might call Galactic Reddit, an information exchange network spanning thousands of species. Taewon's eyes widened. You have interplanetary internet. Something similar, though based on principles your science hasn't yet discovered. The network allows real-time communication and information sharing across the alliance. She adjusted something on the device, and the symbols transformed into Korean characters. I set the translator for your language, she explained, handing him the tablet. Browse as you wish. With trembling hands, Taewon took the device. The surface felt warm and slightly textured. As he touched it, the screen responded, showing what appeared to be forums or discussion groups. These are current conversations happening across the galaxy, Nady explained. Many involve discussions about Earth and humans. Taewon tapped on one heading that translated as Human Adaptability. Threat Analysis. The page filled with comments from beings identifying themselves with names he couldn't pronounce. Their discussion focused on humanity's rapid technological development and environmental adaptation. They're afraid of us, he realized, reading through the exchanges. Some are, Navi acknowledged. Humans progress technologically faster than almost any species we've encountered. What took my civilization 15 generations, yours accomplished in less than 200 years. Taewon swiped to another discussion, this one titled Earth Arts. Emotional Resonance Study. Here, the tone was different. Alien commenters expressed fascination with human music, literature, and visual arts. Several noted that human creative works triggered emotional responses even across species barriers. And others admire us, he said quietly. The alliance is divided on humanity, Nedy explained. Some see your potential for greatness, your compassion, creativity, and resilience. Others focus on your capacity for violence, your resource consumption, your tribalism. For hours, Taewon explored the network, finding discussions about everything from human biology to philosophy. He discovered that Earth's oceans were considered unusually diverse, that human humor puzzled many species, and that several alliance members were advocating for earlier contact with Earth than originally planned. Most surprising were the detailed observations of human history and culture. These beings had been watching Earth for centuries, witnessing humanity's darkest moments and greatest achievements. Finally, Taewon looked up from the tablet, his mind overwhelmed with new information. I'm breaking every protocol by showing you this, Navi said quietly. But I believe you deserve to know. Humans should understand how they're perceived by the wider community they'll eventually join. Why risk so much? Taewon asked. You could lose your position, my freedom, Navi finished for him. Yes, the punishment for unauthorized contact is severe. She moved closer, her iridescent skin glowing softly in the dim light. But in studying humanity, I've learned something important about myself. Sometimes principles must outweigh protocols. Taewon stared at the tablet in his hands, a window into a universe far larger and more complex than he'd ever imagined. What am I supposed to do with this knowledge? He asked finally. Navy's expression softened. That's up to you. But I believe knowing the truth, however complicated, is better than living in ignorance. She reached out, her long fingers nearly touching his hand. Humans have a saying I've always found profound. The truth will set you free. I think perhaps it's time for both our species to be a little more free. Over the next few days, Taewon spent every free moment exploring the Galactic Reddit network. The vast exchange of information between species fascinated him. Discussions about art, science, philosophy, and culture from civilizations he could barely imagine. Most interesting were the threads about Earth and humans, which ranged from scientific analysis to what seemed like alien fan theories about human behavior. One evening, as Navi explained how the network's translation systems worked, an idea struck Taewon. Can I post something? He asked suddenly. Navy's skin flickered with concern. It would be highly unusual. Closed worlds don't have posting privileges. But technically possible. Taewon pressed. My research account has posting access, Nady admitted reluctantly. But I shouldn't. Tae-Won leaned forward eagerly. Just once. Think about it. The first human perspective on the network. Wouldn't that be valuable data for your research? Navi hesitated, her crest rippling with indecision. Finally, she sighed. A strangely human gesture she seemed to have picked up during her observations. Very well. One post. But I should review it first. Tae-Won was already typing on the tablet, fingers flying across its surface. It's just my story. How I noticed your presence, built the device, and what I've learned since. Nothing sensitive. Before Navi could object further, he hit the equivalent of a submit button. The post appeared in the feed with a small chime. Title: The alien woman had been watching me for years. I finally came across it. First direct human post on Galactic Reddit. Tae-Won, Navi exclaimed, her skin pulsing with alarmed purple tones. That was reckless. It's done now, he said, watching the screen. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a notification appeared. Then another. And another. What's happening? He asked as the tablet began chiming repeatedly. Navi's large eyes widened. Your post is going viral, as humans would say. These are responses from across the Alliance. They watched in amazement as comments flooded in. Is this really a human? How did they gain access? Fascinating perspective from a closed-world subject. This violates at least 17 protocols. Report this immediately. The Oversight Committee must be notified. Such primitive understanding, yet charming in its simplicity. Through the night, Tae-Won read responses, answered questions, and shared his thoughts on discovering he wasn't alone in the universe. Navi grew increasingly anxious but couldn't tear herself away from this unprecedented event. The first unfiltered human interaction with the galactic community. The Central Hub is taking notice, she warned as an official-looking message appeared. My supervisors will investigate soon. Let them, Tae-Won said with unexpected boldness. You've shown me that humans are being discussed by thousands of species without our knowledge or consent. Why shouldn't we have a voice? Navi touched his arm gently. Because this isn't how first contact is supposed to happen. There are procedures, preparations, decided by others, not us, Tae-Won pointed out. For 3 days, the post continued generating responses. Tae-Won slept little, divided between his regular job and his new role as humanity's accidental ambassador. Navi remained with him, her concern growing by the hour. On the evening of the 3rd day, while Tae-Won was preparing dinner, his detection device began chirping loudly, much louder than it ever had before. The lights flickered, and a strange pressure filled the apartment. In his living room, not one but 3 shimmering forms appeared. Unlike Navi's gentle entrance, their arrival seemed intentionally intimidating, accompanied by a low humming that made Tae-Won's teeth vibrate. 2 were similar to Navi in general shape but larger with darker skin tones. The 3rd was different entirely, shorter, with a rigid exoskeleton and multiple small appendages. All 3 wore what appeared to be formal attire, structured garments with insignia and devices attached at various points. Navi quickly moved to stand beside Tae-Won, her posture defensive. Senior Observer Ray, she acknowledged, addressing the tallest figure. Research coordinators Jun and Micah. The one called Rai stepped forward. Unlike Navi's musical voice, his was deep and formal. Observer Navi, you have violated the prime directive of non-interference with closed-world subjects. Rai stated, your actions have created a diplomatic situation of the highest severity. Rie turned to Tae-Won, large eyes unblinking. You have created a diplomatic situation. Protocol dictates memory extraction and continuation of observation-only status for Earth. Tae-Won felt a chill run through him. Memory extraction. A painless procedure, the one called Micah explained, her voice clinical. You will remember nothing of our existence, and the network post will be expunged, added Jun, the exoskeleton-covered being, small appendages clicking together nervously. Navi stepped between Tae-Won and the others. Humans are ready. They've been ready for decades. That is not your determination to make, Rai countered. The readiness protocol requires consensus from the Central Committee. Earth remains classified as pre-contact by unanimous decision, based on outdated assessments. Navy argued, her skin flashing with emotion. The evidence shows humans have achieved the technological and philosophical benchmarks for contact. While they argued in increasingly technical terms about protocols and readiness markers, Taiwan's mind raced. He glanced at the tablet Navi had left on his desk, then at his work computer nearby. Slowly, careful not to draw attention, he edged toward his desk. The human's network influence must be contained immediately, Rai was saying. 17 species have already filed formal inquiries about Earth's status, which proves my point, Navi countered. Interest in human perspective is overwhelming. The Alliance benefits from direct engagement rather than mere observation. As the aliens debated, Taiwan quietly picked up the tablet and connected it to his work computer using a data cable. His fingers moved swiftly over the keyboard, accessing his secure work server. Working at an aerospace research facility gave him an advantage. His security clearance allowed direct communication with scientific institutions around the world. Within minutes, he had prepared a data package including images of the aliens in his apartment, recordings of their conversations, and copies of the Galactic Reddit discussions about Earth. He hesitated only briefly before hitting send. The files began uploading to servers at KAIST, MIT, CERN, and a dozen other research centers worldwide. The procedure will begin now, Rai announced, turning back to Taiwan with a small device in hand. Please remain calm. Navi looked desperately at Taiwan, noticing what he had done. Her expression shifted from alarm to something like pride. It's too late, Taiwan said calmly, stepping away from the computer. I've just sent everything. Pictures of you all, recordings of our conversations, and copies of the alien network discussions about Earth, to scientific institutions across the planet. The three officials froze. The evidence is spreading through human networks as we speak, Taiwan continued. Even if you erase my memory, you can't take back what I shared. First contact has already happened. Rie turned to his companions, their expressions unreadable to human eyes, but their agitation obvious from their rapid movements and color changes. This changes everything, Jun clicked, exoskeleton vibrating with stress. The containment protocols are obsolete if information has spread, Micah added. Navi moved to stand beside Taiwan, her hand finding his in a gesture of solidarity. Perhaps, she said quietly, it's time to acknowledge that some decisions should not be made for others, but with them. The world changed overnight. Taiwan's evidence spread across the globe within hours, impossible to contain or dismiss. Videos of Navi and the other aliens appeared on news broadcasts from Seoul to Sydney, London to Lima. Scientists confirmed the footage was genuine. Government officials held emergency meetings. Religious leaders issued statements. But the panic and chaos many had predicted in such a scenario never materialized. Instead, something remarkable happened. Humans, faced with irrefutable proof they were not alone in the universe, responded with curiosity rather than fear. In Seoul, Taiwan watched in amazement as his television showed crowds gathering peacefully in major cities worldwide. Many carried signs with simple messages. Welcome. We come in peace. Hello, neighbors. I don't understand, Rai said, watching the same broadcasts from Taiwan's apartment, which had become a temporary command center. Our models predicted mass hysteria, possible violence. Your models were wrong, Navi said quietly. Humans have been preparing for this moment for generations through their stories, films, and scientific discussions. Within days, an unprecedented coalition formed. Nations that had previously been enemies now worked together to establish Earth's first contact protocols. Scientists, diplomats, and cultural experts from every continent collaborated to create a unified human response. Taiwan found himself at the center of it all. As the first human to make direct contact, He became Earth's natural representative. What began as meetings in his small apartment expanded to secure facilities provided by the Korean government. "They want me to be humanity's ambassador," he told Navi one evening, looking overwhelmed. "I'm just an engineer." "The best person to build a bridge between worlds is one who understands both sides," she replied. "You've already proven you can do that." The City Alliance, facing the reality of Earth's new awareness, had no choice but to adapt. The Central Committee, after heated debate, voted to officially recognize Earth as a contact-ready world and opened formal diplomatic channels. Navi, instead of facing punishment for her breach of protocol, received unexpected recognition. Her detailed observations about human readiness, once dismissed as overly optimistic, were now seen as prescient. "Your assessment of human capability was correct," Rai acknowledged during a formal review. "The committee has approved your promotion to Senior Cultural Liaison for Earth Relations." "Does that mean I get to stay?" Navy asked, her skin rippling with hopeful blue patterns. "It means you are now officially assigned to guide Earth's integration into the wider community," Rai confirmed. "Your connection with the human Taiwan is now considered a diplomatic asset rather than a violation." 6 months after that fateful night when Taiwan had posted to Galactic Reddit, Earth had changed in ways both subtle and profound. The first alien embassy opened in Geneva, with smaller consulates planned for every continent. Human scientists collaborated with Alliance researchers on clean energy technologies and medical advances. Cultural exchanges brought alien art, music, and philosophy to Earth, while human creativity spread throughout the galaxy. She reached across the table, her long fingers gently touching his hand. The gesture had become familiar over the months they'd worked together, bridging their worlds. "Besides," she added softly, "some connections are worth the risk." In that moment, Taiwan realized that the most unexpected outcome of all this wasn't humanity's introduction to the galaxy. It wasn't his new role as ambassador or the technological advances already improving life on Earth. It was the deep bond that had formed between himself and the alien who had watched him for years. Their relationship defied easy definition. More than colleagues, different than friends, something entirely new. Perhaps the first of its kind between their species. Whatever it was, it had changed both of them profoundly. The next morning, they attended the groundbreaking ceremony for the Earth Alliance Communications Center in Seoul. As Taiwan translated the alien delegates' speeches for the human audience, he caught Navi watching him from the side of the stage. Her expression filled with something that transcended species barriers. "1 year ago," he told the gathered crowd, "I was just an engineer who noticed strange things happening in my apartment. Today, we stand at the threshold of a new chapter in human history. Not because we reached for the stars, but because someone from the stars reached for us." He glanced at Navi. "Sometimes the greatest discoveries happen when we break old patterns and dare to connect across differences we once thought insurmountable." Later, as they walked through the cherry blossom trees outside the ceremony site, Navi pointed upward. "There," she said, indicating a barely visible point of light in the daytime sky. "That's my homeworld." "Will you take me there someday?" Taiwan asked. "Yes," she promised, "just as you've welcomed me to yours." A group of schoolchildren approached them cautiously, eyes wide with wonder at Navi's iridescent appearance. Without hesitation, she knelt down to their level, her translator converting their excited questions into her language. Watching her gentle interaction with the children, Taiwan felt a profound sense of peace. The universe had turned out to be stranger, more complex, and more wonderful than humanity had imagined. And it had all begun with moved objects, a homemade detection device, and the courage to reach across the stars to connect with someone different. Taiwan's life had transformed completely. His small apartment was now just a place to sleep between meetings with world leaders, scientific delegations, and alliance representatives. His engineering background proved invaluable as humans began to understand and adapt alien technologies. One quiet evening, Taiwan and Navy sat in his apartment, a rare moment of peace in their hectic schedules. Between them on the coffee table sat the tablet that had started it all. "We should document what happened," Navy suggested, "for the historical records." Taiwan nodded, picking up the device. Together, they drafted a post for Galactic Reddit, a network that now included millions of human users. How an alien observer and a human engineer changed interstellar policy, the official account. They wrote late into the night, detailing the unexpected journey from Taiwan noticing objects moving in his apartment to the formal recognition of Earth as a member of the galactic community. "Do you ever regret it?" Taiwan asked as they finished writing. "Breaking the rules to talk to me." Navy's skin shimmered with warm colors. "Never. Some rules need to be broken for better ones to be made."